Welcome. This is Nathan Crutchfield of Crutchfield Consulting, LLC. The following three-part presentation is entitled The Job Hazard Analysis, the Heart of the Safety Program. I believe that the JHA is an essential part of the safety effort and needs to move from being just an add-on methodology to one that becomes the centerpiece of your safety process. So we will be going through a number of ideas and concepts that help you move the JHA into that centerpiece and more important function. The safety professional should consider the following. He or she should have a personal map of the goals and objectives that are required by their company, by their organization, to control risk and hazard. In order to do this, they must have a clear and concise understanding of the work environment. In many cases, we do things by rote or just because they're a regulatory compliance, and there is a mismatch between the work environment and the program. In order to have this clear and concise understanding, the safety professional must develop and maintain a toolbox of various techniques, methods, and concepts. We believe that by using the JHA approach, you can focus on which techniques and methods and concepts are essential for your particular workforce, so you can customize the controls directly. This will enhance the program, and it will not be just, as we mentioned earlier, a rote program Xerox copied from someone else. In 2005, ANSI published Z10, the Occupational Health and Safety Management Systems. This approach follows the short diagram of plan, do, check, and act. It brings together a number of the essential parts of a program with the goal of improving employee health and safety with the byproduct of productivity, satisfaction, image improvements. And in correlation with this, there would be a reduction in hazards, risk, incidents, the compensation cost, and overall lost time from workers' compensation claims or various injuries. The ANSI Z10 focuses on bringing into the organization a continuous improvement process by establishing under its 3.0 a policy, 4.0 having a plan in place, implementing and operations under Section 5, and then under Section 6, checking for corrective action. A complete process can be developed. Last but not least, under 7.0, there is a management review. Many of these concepts are already in place in many organizations. One component of the ANSI Z10 which must be considered is that it does ask us to focus on risk in order to reduce hazards. So it brings in a number of the things we'll be discussing in this series for the job hazard analysis for safety process improvement. The job hazard analysis process begins with the development of a system to identify and report hazards. You may have a basic self-inspection program, you may have some very fundamental efforts in place, but the JHA process requires a look at all the basics that you have in place at this time. Is the safety policy a valid policy or something just tacked to the wall? Does it emphasize the values safety has, and it is something that people understand and can live up to? Does the company allow employees to be involved in the safety process? We advise and believe that employees, since they're closest to the hazards, are the ones that should be totally involved in the job hazard analysis. In workshops I have provided, we've seen supervisors, line workers, maintenance personnel really do a great job on doing a job hazard analysis. Why? They were there, they understood the hazards, and they worked with them day in and day out, or worked around them in many cases. Does the policy that you have protect employees from harassment? Harassment by peers, harassment by supervisors? Can the word get communicated that hazards or risk exist in the workplace, or are they being short-stopped somewhere? Then we get to the identification of the workplace hazards. You need to review your self-inspection programs, your current guidelines, and are you taking timely and appropriate corrective action? Is there some sort of corrective action planning in place? Where we find gaps in programs is the tracking of corrective actions. Great identification might be there, reasonable and accurate action planning and corrective actions taken, but then the follow-up to make sure that these corrective actions are in place and implemented is where we usually find the weakest part of a program. Let's go back to Z10 for a moment. They emphasize a pyramid of approach where ANSI Z10 is to talk about the overall process and the policy. It does not get into job instruction and documentation. However, as part of the safety and health process, job instructions are essential, and the process guides how job instructions are to be done. The JHA allows us to customize and target in on those jobs and tasks that have the highest risk and the highest hazards. By involving employees in the JHA, we bring in the experience factors that are essential to making sure that all aspects of a job and or task are covered. This in turn lets us build documentation for the continuity of the program. So the pyramid works both ways. The policy to the process drives the job instruction where the JHA resides. The JHA documents and helps us build on these standard operating procedures that are essential for a functioning safety program. The process we're discussing is a continuous loop, similar to what the ANSI Z10 discussed. We begin with the conducting of a risk assessment of the workplace. Once the risk assessment is done, we prioritize the risk as they are found within the workplace. Keep in mind, risk is the combination of severity and frequency of exposure. So what we're looking for is an understanding of the hazards and then developing an actual risk to the workplace based on how bad it could be and how frequent the exposure or the potential for loss might be. We then move to the development of solutions to resolve the risk-related issues. Here we would use the hierarchy of controls. ANSI Z10 does discuss this. We would use the avoidance principle. Can we avoid, just not have the risk? Can we exclude it completely from the workplace? Do we need to substitute for lesser severity potential? Do we need to engineer out? What might we need to develop for further administration of the risk and the various related hazards? Or last but not least, are we providing the proper personal protective equipment? Once we've developed the solutions, there are the recommendations to management, establishing budgets and implementing those solutions. All the time, each of these various areas are monitored for their results. What we're trying to do is get a process in place that clearly identifies, rank orders, develops solutions, makes the recommendations in a clear and concise way to management, and then implements those solutions. Since the workplace continually changes, this is an ongoing, perpetual loop as long as the company is in being and operation. In each workshop involving employees and supervision, it's very interesting to see the management perception versus the employee perception. Almost 100% of the time we find that what management thought was a low risk, employees might have identified a high risk. Employees might be taking shortcuts, trying to get the job accomplished with the goals established by management. Management might not fully comprehend what employees are doing on a day in and day out basis. This is where the JHA accomplishes a major task. It gets out into the open what employees know about the actual hazards as the jobs are being done versus what management thinks is out there. This goes well beyond the regulatory compliance stage of things. The ideal is both management and employees know about all the hazards and understand and comprehend the risks that are being taken. On the other hand, we have the extreme where neither management nor employees know what the risks or the hazards are. This can result in catastrophic events well beyond what might well be expected. We'll continue our dialogue with regards to the job hazard analysis in part 2.